Hello there. This is Philip Koerper. This is the Philip Koerper Show. This is episode 100. All right. April 16, 2019. I really want to lead off with the story of Michael Knowles and what happened to him at UMKC a few days ago. Michael Knowles is a conservative podcaster. He's on the Daily Wire. He's on Fox News. So he's a media pundit. He's a conservative. He's outspoken about the Catholic faith. I really enjoy listening to his daily podcast during the week. Really, he's always been a Trump supporter. He actually bet Ben Shapiro $100 with 4-1 odds that Donald Trump would win the presidency. Oh, Ben Shapiro voted that Donald Trump would not win. I mean, see how Ben Shapiro is a little bit of a never Trumper. But anyhow, Michael Knowles won, and so Ben Shapiro wrote him a check for $400. Michael Knowles has that framed there on his podcast to rub it in a little bit. But anyhow, it's great. Michael Knowles was invited by the Republicans, the student Republicans at UMKC, University of Missouri at Kansas City. That's where my mom got her college degree. I grew up in Kansas City. And anyhow, so apparently, there were disruptors, okay? So Michael Knowles went to this little classroom. It's not a huge venue. And there weren't a whole lot of people there. It looked like there were about 50, 60, 70 people there for the speech. But Michael Knowles, when he started off his talk, and his talk was on how men are not women. Okay, men are not women. So anyhow, the LGBT community kind of activated, and they tweeted out that they would go to this and then just have a silent walkout, and they didn't want to disrupt anything because they didn't want the trans people to get picked on, and they were going to have a protest on the other part of campus. So anyhow, they went to this lecture that men are not women, and sponsored by the Republicans. And the protesters immediately just started yelling and screaming when Michael Knowles was giving his little talk, and totally disrupting the whole event. It's ironic when Bernie Sanders has an event like he just did with Fox News, the yelling and screaming people are immediately hauled out, okay? So, I mean, this is the heckler's veto. I mean, First Amendment rights. I mean, this is a gathering. And at the beginning of this Michael Knowles talk, the Republican there said that people, would be removed if they disrupted the lecture. Let the speaker speak his mind. And then Michael Knowles said there'd be questions afterwards. And this one guy was kind of yelling at him. He said, you could be first in line to answer questions. Very considerate, very nice. So not too far into this talk, people started leaving, and they were yelling and screaming, and there was some double doors kind of close to the podium. This one guy with a mask came back in with a super soaker and squirted some kind of white substance towards Michael Knowles. The police tackled him, tased him. He refused arrest. And then the people started chanting, hands up, don't shoot, hands up, don't shoot, complete lie. It was a lie with Michael Brown. This is a lie. I mean, just ridiculous nonsense, yelling and screaming. It was just unbelievable retardedness. Okay, so what happens afterwards? The Kansas City Star, it's a major newspaper in Kansas City, they lead off with a story, and actually this Aaron Randall, he's contacted me on the Methodist Church. He saw me on Facebook talking about that, and I've texted back and forth with Aaron Randall. But anyhow, they write a story. I mean, this is like a news story under local news. Protester at right-wing UMKC event arrested, but was speaker hoping for a disruption. I mean, maybe this is an opinion piece. It's written like an opinion piece. I can't tell. It doesn't say opinion right here on this. So it's kind of like, girl was raped because, and they said she had a short skirt on, so this is such fake news. Okay, Michael Knowles was not hoping for a disruption. It's retarded. And even if he was, I mean, it's ridiculous. You don't disrupt. I mean, it's stupid to yell and scream and do a heckler's veto where you yell and scream and then the guy can't give his talk. Same thing happened here with Governor Matt Bevin in Pikeville at Hillbilly Days. You know, a few protesters yelled and screamed at him so you couldn't hear his speech. I mean, this is absolute child's play, Kinderspiel. This is just retarded, immature, and you're prohibiting a discussion. Let the people speak, and then you can speak, and we can have a debate. No big deal. So the Kansas City Star just turns on Michael Knowles. Here's an editorial from the Kansas City Star, from the editorial board. At UMKC, a D-list conservative was sad to be squirted with the makings of a bubble bath. I mean, this is just unbelievable. Breaking. Okay, so that wasn't bleach that one of a handful of protesters squirted on a D-list conservative speaker at a poorly attended event at UMKC on Thursday, as the speaker first tweeted. Instead, well, it was, quote, lavender oil and some other non-toxic household liquids, according to a statement from Chancellor Mali Agrawal. The speaker, Michael Knowles, who writes for Ben Shapiro's website, The Daily Wire, was on campus for a Young Americans for Freedom event. Video of it shows rows and rows of empty seats at his talk, Men Are Not Women. Knowles couldn't wait to claim victimhood. Quote, this is what conservatives on campus are up against, he said after the event. This is the kind of violence conservatives on campus stand to face if they state plain facts and refuse to kowtow to leftist fantasy, close quote. Protesters with signs that said trans rights are human rights and trans men are men had originally planned a silent walkout from the event. The disruption, so Michael Knowles read that tweet about their silent walkout, so those people were really confused. They didn't know what to do, so they weren't silent and started yelling and screaming. The disruption was the event, which would otherwise have been a non-event. Knowles later tweeted that, alas, he had only been pelted with the makings of a bubble bath by a hoaxer who was fine getting charged with assault but wanted to avoid a felony. This tiny tit for tiny tat, and no, we're not complaining that it wasn't a more serious attack or that only one student was tackled, tased, and charged with assault, really just shows the extent of the mutual trollery, sometimes referred to as the debate over free speech on campus. Everyone has the right to speak and everyone has the right to protest. But at a certain point, one we passed a while ago, the outrage kabuki is not so much provocative as it is predictable. Missouri Governor Mike Carlson, for one, is not yet bored tweeting that, quote, this kind of behavior is unacceptable and should be tolerated. Toy guns and fake chemicals or not, these actions put people at risk. All students deserve free speech protections and shouldn't be persecuted for political beliefs, appreciating local police for diffusing the situation, close quote. And then they end this, but persecution so ardently sought shouldn't so reliably conferred. Okay, so no call out of this. Okay, and guess what? They're asking for the resignation of the UMKC chancellor because he just, no apology to Michael Knowles, no condemnation for these people. No, he leads off blaming Michael Knowles. Okay, this is just unbelievable. Okay, so there's no, from the Kansas City Star, from the editorial board, from the lead editor of the Kansas City Star, and from the chancellor of UMKC, it's like they agree with this kind of behavior. So it's just unbelievable. There's this article from Twitchy.com, Ratio Alert, KC Papers spin for attack on Daily Wire's Michael Knowles takes victim blaming to the next level. As we told you yesterday, so they talked about this guy shooting this liquid at Michael Knowles. UMKC response to that incident sent a lot of eyes rolling, and the local paper, the Kansas City, chased that by serving up this headline. I read you that article about the disruption. And so now this is being ratioed. This guy tweets, was he asking for a Kansas City Star? Was his skirt too tight? Top too low cut? You had so many chances when you conceived, wrote, edited, published to have a sensible thought and not blame the guy who was attacked. You should be ashamed. I mean, this is ridiculous. What, we're going to support people from attacking speakers? What is going on here? When is conservative speech just hate speech? It's just speech you don't like. When is speech, incitement to violence? I mean, this is what they're saying about Donald Trump when he sent out that tweet about Ilhan Omar, okay, saying, some people did something, referring to the 9/11 attacks. Okay, the storyline, the talking point there was this was an incitement to violence. Okay, Elizabeth Warren said it, and Comrade Cortez said it. I mean, just unbelievable. We can't disagree with you guys. If we disagree with you guys, it's incitement to violence. This is just completely retarded. It's just a total joke. So it's just amazing about how these campuses, I mean, they have safe spaces, not because people will be attacked, right? It's because people will be triggered by people who criticize them or comment or don't agree with them. It's just not allowed. We're not allowed to disagree with the left right now. What they say goes. Boy, they have complete control over the universities. It is really super sad. And this we can't disagree with anyone. So on college campus, if a conservative wants to give a speech, no, we're not going to allow that conservative speech. No, we're not going to allow for that opinion. No, it's not going to be allowed. We're going to yell and scream at you. Candace Owens, the same thing happened. I think it was yesterday when she appeared. She was at University of Pennsylvania. They were screaming at her. She was out there in like the quad talking to people, yelling and screaming. Some guy had this blaring mega horn just doing a tone so no one could hear what she was saying. I mean, they are trying to silence us, silence conservative speech. So when Donald Trump makes fun and points out Ilhan Omar's remarks, it just repeats. Donald Trump in that little video on Twitter just repeated her remarks about 9/11, saying CARE was started after 9/11, which is a complete lie. No, the Council on American and Islamic Relations was started before 9/11. But anyhow, they don't care. Don't let the facts get in the way of their feelings. And so we cannot criticize Ilhan Omar. She needs a lot of bodyguards to protect her now. What about all the criticism of Donald Trump? Wow, aren't they, inciting people to violence against him? No, this is just a one-way street. Tucker Carlson was super eloquent on this and talking about Ilhan Omar. He says, in 1992, Ilhan Omar came to this country from a refugee camp in East Africa. 3 years later, she and her family applied for and received refugee status in the United States. 5 years after that, she became a United States citizen. She's been attacking the United States as a racist hellhole pretty much ever since. According to Omar, there's barely a difference between this country and terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda. In 2013, interviewed Omar complained that people seem to think there's a big difference between American and Al-Qaeda. And then she talks about laughing about Al-Qaeda and Hezbollah, and this professor was just saying those really weird. She's laughing at, and he says, you don't say America with that intensity. You don't say England with the intensity. You don't say the army with the intensity. So Tucker goes on and says, so she still feels that way. We know because she spoke at the recent event on the Council of American Islamic Relations. I just told you about there. Omar offers no proof of that Muslims are second-place citizens. It's an absurd claim. Muslims live with far greater freedom in America than any other Islamic country in the world. That's why so many have moved here, and millions more want to join them. And you would too. That's why Congresswoman Omar lives here and not in Somalia. In America, she's an elected member of Congress. She couldn't do that in Saudi Arabia. But is she grateful? No. She never stops complaining. As part of that complaining, she made this now famous remark about 9/11. And I told you about that. Some people did something, and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties, talking about Muslims. Some people did something. Omar's understatement attracted plenty of criticism, and then President Trump tweeted the infamous video. A little over the top, Tucker says, maybe. If you were Ilhan Omar, you probably wouldn't like that video. Nobody likes to be criticized. But would you feel physically threatened by that tweet? Not unless you believe that disagreement is the same as violence. As it happens, the left does believe that, or claims to. All of a sudden, everyone on TV was telling us that Trump is trying to hurt Ilhan Omar, trying to incite violence against her. I mean, even Cory Booker went on this. Cory Booker says, since 9/11, we've had terrorist attacks in this country. The majority of them have been right-wing extremists, and the majority of those have been white supremacist attacks, he said in an interview. From a synagogue in Pittsburgh to a church in South Carolina, and these are white supremacist groups that use language, as we saw it, as far away as New Zealand, use our president's language almost as if it's licensed for these attacks. Oh, this is Tucker says, I swear in 20 years, every fifth grader will think that 9/11 was committed by white supremacists. You watch. You heard it here first. Forget about 9/11. It's the white supremacists we ought to fear and suppress. That's what Booker's really saying. To prove it, he and so many demagogues on the left are forever telling us about the epidemic of hate crimes in this country, but they're lying. There is no epidemic. In 2017, our biggest and most liberal state, California, convicted a total of just 65 people of hate crimes statewide. By the way, there were fewer hate crimes in 2017 under Trump than in 1996 during the Clinton administration. That epidemic is fake. It's propaganda. They're trying to control you with fear. Your opinions are violence. That's what they're saying. Your opinions are violence. Disagreeing with me is assault. For my safety, you must not be allowed to speak. You must obey. That's what they're telling you. And you can see why. Here's where we come into it. If we're going along with this, if we accede to these demands, it's over. If we let them redefine speech as violence, the First Amendment has no meaning. They can tell you what to say and when to say it. They can use any force necessary to make you be quiet, just as you would do whatever you need to do and whatever force was necessary to stop a terrorist attack. They are saying your opinions and terror attack are the same thing. This is a scary argument, and we should be afraid of it. Oh, kudos to Tucker Carlson. I totally agree with him. We have got to keep speaking the truth. This is one reason why I started this podcast 100 podcasts ago, because Donald Trump is just being silenced on so many different issues from the right and the left. No one was sticking up to him. I mean, it was really very sad. And it was a silent majority, because if you spoke up for Donald Trump last year or in 2016, I mean, you were mocked, totally mocked as a bigot, as a homophobe, as an Islamophobe, as a xenophobic. I mean, it just goes on and on. Complete dehumanization of Donald Trump. That's what Ilhan Omar said. Oh, Obama's a human and Trump's not even human. I mean, she is toxic. So anyhow, I love it. I love it. We got to stand up. We got to keep speaking. We've really got to do that. Well, speaking of that, Fox News article on FBI failed to provide details on contact with Clinton campaign lawyer, Judicial Watch. So the FBI has failed to respond to an October 2018 February of Information Act request seeking more information about communications in the late 2016 between a top Hillary Clinton campaign lawyer and the Bureau's then general counsel, according to the transparency group Judicial Watch. Additionally, groups said that the FBI has ignored this FISA request concerning Bureau communications and payments to British ex-spy Christopher Steele. In response, Judicial Watch announced Tuesday it has filed lawsuits seeking the full release of all the relevant documents. The flurry of litigation comes just days before the special counsel Robert Mueller's report. So more of the same. I really hope that we, with the investigative journal, let's see, with the Attorney General looking into this, and I think investigator general, we can get to the bottom of what started this big hoax, what started this FISA request on Carter Page, who was part of the Trump campaign. Isn't it amazing? Was Carter Page, where is he? Where is Carter Page? Oh, he's just out there in the world. Was he ever arrested or anything? Oh, no. It looks like they got a FISA warrant to spy on him and therefore the whole Trump organization. But whatever they were looking for with Carter Page, this Russian collusion, no, they never even arrested him or indicted him. No, it's just fake. So there you go. Anyhow, let's get caught up in Donald Trump's tweets. Oh, this is great. He tweets out a story from Fox News, Russian investigation, no collusion, no obstruction. Talks about he's going to be in Green Bay for a rally. He said, so weird to watch Crazy Bernie on Fox News. Not surprising, Brett Baer and the audience were so smiling and nice, very strange. Oh, so Bernard Sanders, he really got kind of clobbered here. He got very combative. It's interesting. They asked him, he refused to explain why he would not voluntarily pay the massive new 52% wealth tax that he advocated in imposing on the nation's richest individual. So it's ironic. Bernard Sanders used to be going after the millionaires and the billionaires. Well, now he's only going after the billionaires because right before this started yesterday, Bernard released his tax returns. Oh, so it looks like he made more than $1 million in 2016 and 2017. He gave very little to charity, of course. He's an atheist. He doesn't believe in charity. He just believes in government. Government is his charity. So when he was asked, this is hilarious. He began laughing dismissively and in an apparent... So this is hilarious. When Brett Baer and Martha McCallum pressed him as to why he was holding on to his wealth rather than refusing deductions or writing a check to the Treasury Department, Sanders began laughing dismissively and in apparent non sequitur asked why McCallum didn't donate her salary. And then she said, I didn't suggest a wealth tax. And then he said, come on. Bernard says, come on. I paid the taxes. Oh, I like Ben Shapiro's imitation of Bernard. Ben Shapiro might be anti-Trump, but he really is good at imitating Bernard. I paid the taxes that I owe, Sanders shot back. And by the way, why don't you get Donald Trump up here and ask him how much he pays in taxes? Oh, a little distraction here. Change the subject. President Trump watches your network a little bit, right? Hey, President Trump, my wife and I just released 10 years. Please do the same. Asked whether Sanders' success had subsequent decision to hold on to his cash wasn't an implicit endorsement of the capitalist system he has repeatedly called dysfunctional, Sanders rejected the notion out of hand. Quote, when you wrote the book and made the money, isn't that the definition of capitalism and the American dream? Baer asked, referring to his best-selling memoir, Our Revolution. Oh, he's such a communist. And then Sanders says, no. What we want is a country in which everyone has opportunity. A lot of people don't have a college degree. A lot of people are not United States senators. Sanders doubled down on his previous defense of his wealth, which even some progressives have called hypocritical. This year we had $560,000 in income, Sanders says. In my and my wife's case, I wrote a pretty good book. It was a bestseller, sold all over the world, and we made money. If anyone thinks I should apologize for writing a best-selling book, I'm sorry. I'm not going to do it. Well, why can't he just write it and donate the money? Why does he need the money? Why can't he just write a best-selling book and put it on the internet for free? It'd be even more best-selling. Oh, most people, who bought this book? Most of his supporters just buy millions of this book of it, who knows, and just to give him money. It's just money laundering. Oh, poor Bernard, very defensive. So Donald's having fun with that. Donald tweeted, no collusion, no obstruction. And then he talked about how Andy McCarthy's column was really good. Dirty dealings of dirt devils who concocted trust Russian probe. Donald says, the greatest scam in political history. If the mainstream media were honest, which they are not, this story would be bigger and more important than Watergate someday. And it's true. That's true. We've mentioned that before. Yes, Richard Nixon was spying on the Democrats, but he wasn't using the FBI to spy on them. Obama was using the FBI to spy on Donald. Okay? And really try to affect the outcome of the election. And then when the shock HRC didn't win, then they used all of this spying to try to drive him out of office. It's ridiculous. It was a coup. John Brennan. It was a coup. Donald tweeted yesterday, the forgotten voters of the 2016 election are now doing great. The steel industry is rebuilding, expanding at a pace that it hasn't seen in decades. Our country has one of the best economies in many years, perhaps ever. Unemployment numbers best in 50 years. Wow. You know, it's interesting. Mayor Pete Buttigieg is going after Donald now, just saying, oh, his ideas about this industrial age, I mean, they're so outdated and stuff. They still don't get it. Oh, Donald. Donald talks about the fire at Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, which was awful. They say it's not arson, but I find it very suspicious in the lead up to Easter that this couldn't have been an arson attack. Who knows? And then he congratulated Tiger Woods for his win. I mean, that comeback victory of Tiger Woods was just, so impressive. So very impressive. And he said, spoke to Tiger Woods to congratulate him on the great victory he had in yesterday's Masters, to inform him that because of his incredible success and comeback in sports, golf, and more importantly, life, all caps, I will be presenting him with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Oh, that's so cool. So great. I mean, Tiger Woods is a comeback story for us. You know, to be so low in his sport, low in health with all of his back problems and all of that, and then when his life fell apart with all of his personal problems, so awesome to see him come back. Americans love that. So in closing, I was asked at work about the book of Revelation, at the end of the book of Revelation, where it talks about don't adding onto this book. Well, yeah, that is the book of Revelation, and I totally agree. We should not add on to John's prophetic counsel in the Bible. No. But remember, that's not the last book of the Bible, and the Bible wasn't written. It wasn't like John knew that it was going to be the last book. He wrote like 1 John and those other books even later than the book of Revelation. So we shouldn't add on to John's writings. Yeah, I totally agree. Deuteronomy has the same verse. Talks about the writings there. We shouldn't add or add or change the words in Deuteronomy that Moses wrote. So people use this as an argument about further modern day revelation. So I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, as you guys know, and sometimes people say, well, the Book of Mormon, you know, what's going on here? More scripture, and here it says in the Book of Revelation that we shouldn't have any more scripture. Well, it doesn't. Okay, as I explained, I don't interpret it that way. And so we believe in modern day revelation. So, and we also believe in finding the truth wherever it may be. So the Book of Mormon's exciting because it's a whole another group of people having experiences with God and God calling and sustaining prophets. So my friend asked me, well, how do you know? I mean, it talks about false prophets in the Bible. It does. Christ brought that up in the New Testament. So if we have false prophets, we must have true prophets, right? And Christ said, by their fruits you shall know them. So I believe in modern day prophets. I believe President Nelson is the modern day prophet on the face of the earth right now. He's the president and leader of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. How do I know that? I've prayed about it. And I feel like the Spirit is telling me. That's the only way we can really know the truth. Okay, you got to ask God if it's true or not. I prayed about the Book of Mormon. I know it's the Word of God. I know the Bible is the Word of God. These books and these writings are awesome, and they They turn my heart towards God. The Book of Mormon is another testament in Jesus Christ. It testifies of Jesus Christ, like the Bible testifies of Jesus Christ. These books are great, and they help focus me on following Jesus Christ, believing in him, believing in his atonement, and having faith in him, and trying to live my life in accordance to his will, to follow him. So that's great. That's my rock, is Jesus Christ. That's the center of my universe, is Jesus Christ. So awesome. Thank you guys for listening. This is Philip Koerper. This is the Philip Koerper Show. You can subscribe, listen to on iTunes. Also at my website, philkoerper.com. And also you can watch this on YouTube under the Philip Koerper Show. All right, you guys, take care. Have a great day.